Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Language of Leadership series with Gina London. We're delighted to be here. Hi, Gina. It's lovely to see you.
Hi, Sam. Great to be here with you. I know it's summer season. I know a lot of people are taking off for holidays, but it's a good time to start thinking about what happens when we have to go back to work.
Yes, yes. And I know that there's been a lot of changes in a lot of businesses, and some people might be starting a new role as a manager. So we're going to talk about that, how to manage a new team as a new manager, because it can be quite daunting. But first of all, for people who don't know you, Gina, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I started out as a journalist. So I'm an American. I've got a company now based in Dublin, Ireland, but I started out working in newspapers. I worked for the Orlando Sentinel for a time, and then I had an opportunity to move to the nation's capital, and I was briefly working as a congressional aide, and then I worked for the Democratic Party as an opposition researcher. So I got lots of interest in the U.S. presidential race, but we won't spend any time on that today. But then I had the wonderful opportunity of going to lunch with the press secretary of the DNC at the time. And he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I think I'd really like to get into journalism again, but in television." And that really appeals to me, the immediacy of it and the ability to bring things live through the camera. And he said, "Well, you better go quickly because you won't be able to take the pay cut after you've been in politics for a while." And so I did have an opportunity then to work in local Fox station in Washington. And ultimately, I was a correspondent and an anchor at CNN at the network level then for almost 10 years. So I've interviewed presidents, I've interviewed celebrities, I've interviewed fantastic real people with the Olympics going on. I covered the Olympics a couple of times. And really, though, it's all about people. And
Hmm.
then after I left the time that I was telling stories of other people, then I got a chance to work in emerging democracies as a trainer, helping people who are committed to social justice and civil society building to help them tell their stories. And then that's moved into the corporate world where I train, speak, and coach on how to take more control of your own communications to work better with customers, clients, colleagues, employee engagement, really every facet of bringing the best version of ourselves to work in life is a lot of what I do these days.
Absolutely. And you do it so well, Gina. Even from, the little collaborations that we've done, I've been learning from you a lot, and it could be something as simple as when someone says something, how do you react to that person? So, like, for people who are watching, and welcome everybody, we have 14 people watching us at the moment. Hello there. Thank
Hi,
you so much
everyone.
for
Thank
joining.
you.
Do feel free to comment. I might even put your comment on the screen. So definitely, Gina, with you, you have experience, of course, in training Fortune 100 company leaders and stuff like that. So tell us a little bit about like some tips maybe for someone who is just starting in a new position with a new company, new team. They're the stranger, let's say, coming into this place that they've always done things the way they've done them,
I'm
for
going to take it.
example.
Thanks, Sam. I'm going to take it from two. We know we're talking about managers for today, but I'm also going to take it from the new hire position as well, because just because you've started in an organization doesn't mean you're coming in at a manager level. And I think there are opportunities for everybody, no matter if you have the title or you don't, to start to think more actively and more focused about the you that you want to bring. And I think there's a lot of buzzwords out there right now: bring your whole self to work, be your authentic self. And those are great when you think about you don't want to hide behind who you are in terms of diversity and inclusion and your points of view and your opinions. However, it doesn't give you an excuse to say everything to anyone at any time under the guise of, well, this is my authentic self. That is irresponsible. I think it's also less thoughtful and it's less relationship building than where my approach comes is not to be fake, but is to genuinely be thinking about the other person, knowing that your communications land on a timeline with what they're dealing with, what you're going through, and how can you begin to purposely and purpose filled make yourself a more connecting, engaged person. So let's start with that couple of these ideas that would work for managers or for that first hire. And it's not about the competencies. A lot of people become a manager because they've had enough transactions or they've been able to be successful with their skills development, but they haven't necessarily had alongside this purposeful people skill development. So I remember years ago, I was in Abu Dhabi visiting a friend, a former colleague of mine at the CNN bureau there, who had become a big manager now of the people. He had been an executive producer and now he was actually on the administrative side. And he said to me, sorry, I'm going to swear here, folks, get ready. He says, this people stuff is shit. It's really hard. I have to think of it. And that's the point, is that this management stuff is not innate. It isn't always natural. It is something where we need to start thinking systematically about who they are, what motivates them, and how you can begin to recognize, listen, and value them. So this works whether you're in the management role or you're beginning to navigate around your colleagues. First of all, start to build yourself a grid. You can do it handwritten, you can do it on Excel, you can do something on a Google Drive. I don't care, but get systematic about who's my group. Is it my team if I'm a manager? Am I managing 5? Am I managing 5 direct reports who are then managing 20? Start to get your lay of your land by names. And by that, I don't just mean their first name and their last name, but also, do they have a nickname? Are you pronouncing their names correctly? Do you have an opportunity to spend some time listening to them? When you come on as a manager, that 30-day or 90-day listening, onboarding for yourself and for them is really important for you to campaign yourself. That's what you're doing. You don't just come on and start getting transactional. You come in and actually start to get systematic about how you're going to begin to learn and listen from each of those people. So that's the first tip that I would give. Start to really map out who your environment, who's in your little ecosystem where you're working. Then you can start to dashboard them. That gets a little bit, dashboard. Are they really easy to talk to? Are they more direct? Are they finance minded? Are they the chatty ones? Because the more you can understand their communication style, then that gives you some information for how you're going to want to approach them and interact with them. And there's a lot out there on the personality assessments and the DISCs and the Myers-Briggs and other professional assessments. And I think all of them are okay for a baseline, but once again, to help you understand them, but not for you or them to wrap up in a blanket and use an excuse to not develop. So the more you can start to get to know people, the more you're going to have those relationships. But it takes a proactive approach that is systematic as opposed to an organic over time. Oh, I met Sam because she was more outgoing, but I didn't outreach to Stephen because he never turns his camera on when we have a meeting, or he isn't very interactive. Let's not make presumptions when you're in that management role or when you're in that new hire role and you're trying to make sense of your environment. The responsibility is on each of us to be that proactive, caring, listening, recognizing communicator. So first tip, be proactive. Start to make sense of your ecosystem where you are.
Yeah, that's really good because, there are so many different personalities and you don't know, maybe someone could be just shy, but could be the best worker or whatever, and it doesn't mean that the person who's outgoing, who's the loudest is necessarily the best one.
100%. And I think there's so many presumptions that are made. And over time, now some of those presumptions might be validated. But if you can, especially when you're new, even if you've been elevated or promoted from within, and then you think you know those team members because you might have come across them, maybe you've actually been promoted from your own team. Now the dynamics change though. So you have an opportunity, which is exciting, to set the restart button. If some of your relationships aren't as strong for whatever reason, do one-on-ones. I'm a big believer in the power of the open-ended question. What's on your mind? Thanks for your time. What's on your mind? What's going well? What can be improved? Open ended. Don't say, what can I improve or what can Jill improve? Be as open ended as you can to try to just listen and block it for like maybe just 30 minutes as your first round of listening sessions. And make sure if you've got 30 people in your team, each of those 30 are getting that 30 minutes, because what you don't want to do is be perceived as right out of the block giving favoritism to someone, because people talk, even to the point where if you have your listening session list and you've got an assistant, for example, I would do two things. I would first assess who in protocol land probably is important to speak to first. Because if I speak to Julie first, but it turns out I've also forgotten that Ruth gets really upset if she's not talked to first, or if somehow Ruth has a project that's more on deadline, you've got to be very smart about these little things can impact your relationship, which then can impact the way that you can motivate and inspire that team to get these transactions across the line, whatever they are. But so often we think it's just the work or the deadline that's requiring the productivity to happen, but it's not. It's really the way that we are best managing and being careful and care filled for those people.
Care filled. I love that. People, anyone that's watching, we 57 people watching us at the moment. So please do ask questions in the comments. We will put them on the screen. We'll certainly have a go while we're here. And so number one, map out who they are. So what was number two then? The
Number two is to begin to build your actual time out of your calendar out your listening engagements. Sometimes people will do, when they're coming in as a new manager, think about your first 90 days as a campaign. I was talking at the beginning that I've covered US presidential elections. And of course, there's always that with whatever country, if a new leader takes place, there's always that first 100 days of that leadership. So really for you too, the first 100 days of your leadership is a chance to reset. If you've already been with an organization and you want to do some course correction or amplify yourself in a different way, or if you're brand new to the organization, to try to land as much of a positive first impression impact in that sense. So it requires, again, proactive calendaring. If you are going to just do a town hall kickoff style where you come into your team, you introduce yourself, they're sitting around passively, I would certainly encourage you to either ask them by name to get some questions out there, build a way that they're not in a passive, I'm sitting there listening and I'm just announcing type of an engagement, because that's not an engagement. That is just, I'm a lecturer, we're a bunch of students, and that dynamic doesn't encourage contribution, innovation, challenges, shared opinions. So the more you can hit the ground running is, I'm not just that open door and you need to walk through it, but I am that open door and I'm going to walk out to you and reach to you and listen to you and look at you so you know that you're seen and that you're valued. The proaction on this cannot be stressed enough.
Okay, brilliant. So let's say you started as, let's say, I know we're talking about managers, but as a CEO, would that be different, or would it be the same tactics? The
If
same?
you're, well, it's the same approach for any leader. If you're the CEO of a large organization, I've worked with some very large multinationals, and I won't name the name of one, but in the last couple of years, there was a new CEO that came on board, global CEO, who had come from internal and had come from finance. And the previous CEO, now, what happens is when we have a CEO who leaves, who is gregarious and considered to be a great communicator and very good on message, external audiences, for panels, for television, for however you're promoting and representing that organization, most of us have forgotten if that CEO started out not as vivacious or not as clear and has gone on a progressive journey, most of us are seeing that person at that fully formed snapshot. And that's a detriment to the new person if that person isn't as comparably vivacious, energetic, landing on messages, which in this particular situation I'm describing, this person wasn't. This person, as I'd mentioned, had come from finance, was good at what they did, but also very numbers driven and not as external facing, engaging as they were internally thoughtful and strategic. So, how to bridge that gap? Because what happened was this person then started feeling insecure about how others were rightly, oh yeah, they're not as, no, the other guy used to do this, why doesn't this guy, in the non-gendered specific use of the word, why doesn't this person do this? And that right away, I think, has put that person on a back foot. Whereas if that person had come in and said right away, hey, I'm new. You know me from finance. You know how I'm good at what I'm doing. And I'm also, so you signal out your areas of improvement. I'm a big fan of signaling out your goal so that other people can hold you able and help watch and support you on your progress, right? So if you're meeting with your team for that first time and you've already identified internally or maybe with a coach or with your other members of your senior leadership team or some colleagues, here are some areas that I want to improve. Signal that at your meeting. Signal a group meeting of here's who I am, here's my background, here's what I'm looking forward to getting better at with your help. Other things that you're seeing, here's the repository for suggestions or observations because I want to engage you on this journey. I can't do it without you. That really makes people feel appreciated. They feel like they're part of that, your own progress. They take some buy-in from when they see that progress. And I think it just makes you more of a real person. So the point here is I don't care if you're the CEO of a giant organization or if you're the new manager of two other team members in a 10-person organization, they're people.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that you can actively acknowledge yourself as a person and see the others as people, you start to really bring together more of a culture, more innovation, more psychological safety, more care. And this is one of those things where you're busy selling or meeting deadlines or thinking about your services and products, and you forget that it's people that are doing this.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
purposeful people stuff has got to be not a final part of your 90-day or 100-day strategy. It has to be the beginning part of your strategy alongside whatever else you're doing. So if you're trying to get handle on numbers, you're trying to get handle on projections and projects and things like that, do not let the people stuff wait. Start it immediately on yourself and the other people that you've identified in your ecosystem.
Yeah, and Mahmood, is it? Yes, he has said, nice subject, all the
Hi,
best to
Mahmood.
you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for your comment. Yeah, so I mean, the there might be a negative, when someone goes into an organization, sometimes as a new manager, there might have been a negative vibe beforehand. So would you advise, let's say you mentioned a suggestion, having some, like, maybe a suggestion box or something. Is that what you meant? Or just
Sure.
you,
Some repository for where people can anonymously.
that's what I mean, anonymous, is that what you suggest? Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then with that style, it's important that you also respond to those. So they don't just know that they're going to have a place where they can put put contributions or considerations or things that they would like to suggest, but also what's your means of responding to them. Hey, everybody's going to I've got a box if you want to do something physical, or I've got a I don't know how to set these things up, but there's got to be ways to set up an anonymous email drop box of some sort, right? There's got to be a software, something that you can do solutions wise, where every Friday I am going to go through it, or my team and I are going to go through it, or we're going to examine them in some sort of format together. If we get 10, we're going to actually respond to the first 3 that we get, or we're going to respond to all of them. I don't know, but I would certainly, and you can put it out as a pilot. Then we're going to review if this system worked at the end of the month, and we're going to go back and continue to do this. But the whole idea about people is it is a rinse, ring, repeat, modify. Like, you're never done.
Yeah.
I talk about the 100 days of your campaign. As soon as that campaign's over, it's time for a new campaign. And your ability to not make presumptions that somebody who was feeling good in March is still feeling good in June is really critical, because the care and feeding of your teams is never ending. And so importantly then, for the manager, especially CEOs, because the higher up you get, the more lonely it can be sometimes, because your ability then to share how yourself is going, people make assumptions about you that you've got all the answers and that everything's fine and nothing gets to you. And so to have a thinking partner or an external coach or some trusted person within your organization where you can, not just your spouse or your significant other, because that's a lot of extra pressure on them, which is unfair, especially when these are professional considerations that you don't want to bring all that home from work. But do have someone where you can offload, a therapist, a counselor, anyone where you can be able to express yourself and the concerns you're having and have someone else examine them with you. That self-care for a manager or a top level exec or any person in workplace. We have a lot of pressures. So it's really important to find what self-care works for you. Sometimes it's another thinking partner, as I mentioned, another human being. Sometimes if you don't have to really unpack some complex situations, it can be simply making sure you disconnect with competence on the weekend or for your lunch break, or find ways that you are refueling yourself, because there is a requirement for you as a leader to be feeding others, fueling others. So you're not a bottomless reservoir. You must find a way to refill your cup. And sometimes it's exercise, sometimes it's yoga, sometimes it's a sporting event, sometimes it's cooking or hobby or what have you. But make sure you are not letting it go, because burnout is real. Fatigue and exhaustion in the workplace is real. So when I'm talking about responsibilities for managers to their teams, the first responsibility for any, not just a manager, for any person, is to yourself. You know, the whole, you in the airplane and you put the oxygen on yourself first so you can better serve the others. That is true. And I think a lot of times in a very fast-paced workplace, we probably are forgetting to care for the others, but we're also probably forgetting to care for ourselves. And so what we're getting then is that quiet quitting or the turnover that you're wondering why that's happening. And the best way to get that restated or restarted is by communicating. Admit it. The best culture refresh I know are honest communications, honest conversations, not big e-blasts that aren't giving people a chance to also express themselves and be heard. Facilitated listening sessions are a great mechanism to bring people back together and restart a culture or restart a team. Back from the holidays, when September gets going again, and most companies are back in full force, kicking off with an offsite or kicking off with a listening session or kicking off with something that acknowledges everybody needed to go have a holiday for a reason, and now let's get our mindsets back together, is a great way to bring alignment and cohesion into your team place. But don't wait for someone else to do it. If you're a manager, you need to be the one who's organizing that and acting like you care about it and that it's a priority and not something that you have to do.
Yeah, Lorena actually,
Hi,
she
Lorena.
agrees so much with this. Lorena's from Stella Corporate Housing, actually. Very, very lovely lady. I know her myself. But you did mention something there that I just want to go back to before we wrap up. Lonely at the top.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is something I know that you help people a lot, especially with your language of leadership. And help people just by helping them with tips like this on how to communicate and so on. Can you tell us a little bit about that language of leadership? Because I know for
Yeah.
me, it's important for me to have someone like a mentor, or even it could be a friend in business that I can just kind of bounce things off. Or as a business owner, we like to be able to talk to other business owners, for example, but it can be lonely the more successful you
Yeah.
become. And this was mentioned a while back on LinkedIn. So have you any tips? I know you have your language of leadership, for example, but have you any tips for any CEOs who are watching, or any managers, on how that could help them, even just being part of language of leadership?
My language of leadership platform, I designed it so that people can get a daily dose of me, a daily dose of someone who
Sounds good to
cares,
me.
a daily dose of a reminder of things that we can take control of.
Hmm.
And it's what I love about what I created is that it is designed to be progressive, that you take one video for 3 minutes and then there's a little exercise that helps solidify the learning or the reminder or the idea or something that maybe you haven't come across before, something you have deactivated and haven't been really actively applying for a while. But those little progressive daily devotionals bring you on a journey of reminding and resetting every morning is the idea for it. Now, when you subscribe to it, and there's a lovely price of just under $200 to get access to the whole academy with all 6 months worth of videos and the downloadable PDFs that I have that support it. But the idea is that you get that daily check-in. It's like you brush your teeth in the morning, you make your bed, and you go click on one of my videos, and it's just me talking to you and reminding us of the things we can take control of. Gamification, team building, ideas of how we can restart a motivation, small things about how to have a one-on-one conversation that a lot of managers are asked to do, but have never been actually given a little script on how to do that. And I
Mm.
think that's where a lot of managers feel insecure because they're thinking, am I doing this right? Is there a book of best practices? Yes, there is. Does it make a difference if I smile when I'm saying something uplifting, or is it just the information? Yes, it makes a difference. And exercising in a safe space, your muscle memory around how to do this so that you can be more connecting and more encouraging of your team members. Again, it's not something that everybody's just born with. Nobody was born learning how to talk and walk. So there's no shame that there's a tool out there that you can use in your own pace from me, because I've been around it. I've have wonderful experiences with people all over the world about these similar concerns. So they're not so small that I should have already known it. No, they're so small I've probably overlooked it.
Hmm.
So these small things add up to great impact for your teams, refueling for you, and a connection that you're not alone.
Yes.
Because when I'm coming in to your house with my little video, then I think that hopefully you feel like I'm genuinely talking to you, and then you can reach me on Instagram, reach me on LinkedIn, find a question you can ask. I really try to be supremely responsible to anyone. If you're subscribing to languageofleadership.org, as you see going on your screen right there, or if you're a client with a big organization that I'm doing one-on-one executive coaching for, if you're a human being, I swear I do care.
She does. She does, folks. And you're very responsive on social media. Actually, a lot of people have mentioned that. So folks, definitely check out languageofleadership.org. And Gina, thank you so much for those tips. If anyone has any questions, if you want to go to the link in LinkedIn where this live stream took place, feel free to put a comment in, and also connect with each other like Lorena and Mahmood. And, you know, we have another message there from a LinkedIn user. Thank you for sharing your insights, and to Sam for hosting. It's easy for leaders to lose sight of this, and it takes planned and meaningful steps to continue building trust. Absolutely.
It's
Well
true.
done.
It's definitely, as I said before, it's a rinse and repeat. This stuff isn't, we don't wash our hair one time and then it's great for the rest of our lives. We
Mm,
have to go back and continue to upskill, remind ourselves, touch back to the other person. And there's no, and that shouldn't be frustrating to us. That's life, you know? And so I think when we can even have a session like today that brings us together to go, yeah, this stuff matters.
yeah.
Yeah, the responsibility is on me, but the reward
Hmm.
of it, when someone says, wow, you did take some time to listen, you weren't on your phone or on another keyboard while I was talking to you, you are asking a follow-up question to try to dive deeper into what I'm saying, this stuff matters. And yes, the productivity bottom line is also something that changes as a result. But first and foremost, when we cultivate our curiosity, cultivate our proactive people skills, that is better than every MBA program out there, focusing on how you are actively kind and caring and taking some notes on that and using that information to help them be the best versions that they can be makes you the best manager that you can be.
Lovely. I want that manager. Definitely. Thank you so much, Gina. Thank you so much, Gina London. Please connect with Gina. You can connect with her on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. You're doing really well, Gina, with all your social media. And definitely check out the languageofleadership.org. And thank you so much, Gina. We had 89 people watching. Thank you all so much. And definitely, we will see you. Enjoy the rest of the summer. And we will see you next month with another great topic to help you on your journey.
Thank you. It all makes a difference. Each of you is not too big to blow it off or not too small to make a difference. Each of us can make a difference.
Thank you, Gina.